Hey everybody, this is the third part of my pentatonic tutorial that I'm doing. The first part, I started out showing you some common solos and how to understand those within the pentatonic boxes. In the second one, I showed you how to find 3 pentatonic boxes along the fretboard. And in this one, here's the question I got for you. You know this. But how do you connect them together? How do you get to the point where you can do stuff like this? How can you connect them together? That's what we're going to explore in this. We're going to use something I like to call anchor shapes and explore how we can connect those together. So check it out. All right, here's the cool thing about the pentatonic. The pentatonic is made up of 2 sections. I like to call it a small span and a broad span. A small span and a broad span. The small span only covers a whole step. The broad span covers a whole step plus a half step. So if you don't know what steps are, when you go from the 5th fret to the 6th fret, that's a half step. When you go from the 5th fret to the 7th fret, that's a whole step. If I go from the 5th fret to the 8th fret, that is a whole step plus a half step. So we're going to play this, that's a half step. We're going to play this, that's a whole step. And we're going to play this. That is a whole step and a half step. So your whole steps are your small spans. And your whole step plus your half step are your broad spans. So whenever I say small span, I mean a whole step. Whenever I say broad span, I mean a whole step plus a half step. So let's go ahead and take a look at the pentatonic boxes I taught you in the last lesson. If you didn't check out the last lesson, go check it out. Remember, I got free lessons on here every single week, so be sure to go check that out. And then, of course, if you need a foundational course, I've got a foundational course at my website, which you could check out in the link in the description, or any of my descriptions, you can go check that out. I've got all of my stuff at linktree.com/DanH411, but the direct link to the course is on there, but it's also down in the description. 7-day course, help you unlock the fretboard, help you see this thing in a whole new light, unlock the code, figure out exactly how to find these shapes that I'm showing you here and move them around, string by string, day by day, understanding a little piece every day. I believe in chunking the material, making it in small chunks so that you can go ahead and just learn a little bit at a time. And that engages your muscle memory. And as you learn, and as you add more to it and scaffold up and add more to it and add more to it, you eventually are able to do things without even thinking about it, because you put it into your muscle memory. It becomes tacit, it becomes intuitive, and you can just pick up the guitar and play with confidence, play intuitively, solo intuitively, improvise intuitively, and play with ease and play with confidence and be stage ready and just pick up the guitar and go. And that's what I want for you. So again, check out that 7-day free course. And what we're going to do today is take a look at one of the concepts that I like to show, which is the anchor shapes. So if you haven't learned these 3 shapes yet, I'm not going to reteach them again in this lesson, so just go back and check out that other lesson and you'll be able to understand this lesson a little bit better. The first shape that we did was this one. It's your A minor. It starts out with a broad span, goes from the 5th fret to the 8th fret, and then you got 3 short spans, and then you have 2 broad spans. So we're playing on the 5th and the 7th, or we're playing on the 5th and the 8th. Pretty easy, right? 5th, 8th, 5th, 7th, 5th, 7th, 5th, 7th, 5th, 8th, 5th, 8th. Remember I said that the pentatonic always has 2 shapes, or 2 different parts. It has a small span and it has a broad span. Let's look at the other 2, and then I'm going to break down for you how those work, and I'm going to show you that it works the same way everywhere you play the pentatonic. Everywhere you play the pentatonic, it works the same way. So on the one below this, we played this. We're going to start out with 2 small spans on the 6th and the 5th strings at the 3 and the 5. And then 2 broad spans on the 4th and the 3rd string at the 2 and the 5. And then going to the small spans 3 and 5 across the 2nd and the 1st string. And then we have that one that we already showed you. And then going back to the 3rd shape, which is the one above this one, which is going to be played with a small span. In this case, it's across the 8th fret and the 10th fret. And then the 7th fret and the 10th fret, 2 broad spans on the 5th and the 4th strings. And then 3 small spans on the 3rd string. It's going to be the 7th and the 9th. And then the 8th and the 10th on the 2nd and the 1st string. Now you might be thinking to yourself, I don't see a pattern. There's a couple times where you only play 1 small span and then you play 2 broad spans. Or maybe you only play 1 broad span and you play 3 small spans. And then you play 2 more broad spans. So where's the pattern? Okay, the pattern is always this. But you got to think about the fretboard as being ongoing or extended. If the fretboard is here, I'm only seeing a chunk of the fretboard. If the fretboard kept on going in both directions, then this would always be the same. It's always 2 broad spans and then 3 small spans. And then 2 broad spans, 3 small spans, 2 broad spans, 3 small spans, 2 broad spans, 3 small spans. That's it. It's always the same. It's always the same. And you might be saying, it doesn't look that way. But remember, in your mind, think about the fretboard being extended. If we extend the fretboard, if you got a 9-string guitar, it's going to be a little bit easier to see this, okay? But think about the first one, that first shape we did, which is your A minor shape. We got a broad span, then we got 3 small spans. Then we got 2 broad spans. Now here's where it gets tricky. The first string plays the same thing as the 6th string. So if I was playing this first string here, and I had another string here, this is my E string. So that means that the next string, because this is an E string too, that means the next string here would be an A string, which means my next groupings would be what I do across my A string, my D string, and my G string, which would be 3 small spans. So if I'm playing this, which is the same thing as here, then I would go small span, small span, small span, and then I would do broad span, broad span. See how it keeps on going? So from here, we're playing the same thing as we're playing here, which means we just played 2 broad spans. One was on the 2nd string at the 5 and the 8, and one was on the E at the 5 and the 8, which is the E at the 5 and the 8. So now we're going to do 3 small spans. 2 broad spans, 3 small spans. 2 broad, that's the same thing as this. So we're playing, and then we're playing 3 small spans. It's hard to kind of get you to understand, but the idea there is if it keeps on going, it's going to keep playing 3 small, 2 broad, 3 small, 2 broad. But think of it like a circle. Think of it like a circle. Think of the whole fretboard as just being a circle. And we're coming back to that, and we're just going to go around. I'm going to skip playing the E on the first string, and you're going to hear how it just goes 2 broad, 3 small, 2 broad, 3 small. And that's it. So the other 2 shapes do the exact same thing. When you go to this one that's below the A minor scale, I'm playing 2 small, and then 2 broad, and then 2 small. Now you might be scratching your head right now saying that's not the same thing, but it is. Let's look at the broad spans. We got 1, 2, and then we got 3 small spans. We got 1 here, and then 1 there. That's 2, right? 1, 2, but it's a circle. So we're just going back around to the 6th string, which we've already played that. So we can't count that one again. We can't count that as a 3rd small span. It's still our 2nd small span, which means the one that we play on the 5th string at the 3rd and the 5th fret is our 3rd small span. So you got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because I'm not counting that one on the 6th string. right? I'm not going to count that one because it's the same as the one on the first string. So now we have 3 small spans, 1, 2, 3, 2 broad spans on the 4th and the 3rd strings at the 2nd and the 5th frets. So skipping the 1st string, I'll skip the 1st string and just play the 4th, the 2 broad spans, which are on the 4th and the 3rd strings, and then the 3 small spans on the 2nd, the 6th, and the 5th. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now let's compare it to the original one, which is this. Let's see if I can find that same sequence. So we need to start here, which is actually my 2nd broad span, right? So let's start on the 2nd broad span, which in this case, in this other shape, is on the 3rd string at the 2nd and the 5th frets. Start there, skip the 1st string, and just go ahead and play that same pattern. So it should sound exactly the same. It should sound like this. Here we go. Same thing. It sounds different because you're playing higher strings, but it's the same notes. It's the exact same notes. We'll do the same thing on the one that's above that scale, which is this one. That was a whole lot easier to see because we actually have the broad spans right before 3 small spans right next to each other. So on this one we have, at the 7th and the 10th frets, we have the broad span on the 4th and the 5th string. And then on the 3rd string, we got that small span, which is at the 7th and the 9th. And then on the 2nd and the 1st strings, you have the small span on the 8th and the 10th. And that pretty much is the whole sequence. The only thing that we're leaving out is the 6th string, which is playing the same thing as the 1st string. It's playing the 8 and the 10, and that's our small span. That's our 3rd small span, which is the same one we've already played. So we really don't need to repeat it. But you can get that same sound by playing the 2nd broad span, and then go ahead and go through the 3 small spans, and then go back to the 5th string and play that 1st broad span. So right there. Same thing. And same thing. It's all the same. So the broad spans can then become your anchor shapes. If you know where the broad spans are, they can become your anchor shapes, and you can go ahead and use those to move up and down or slide up and down these shapes. So you can go ahead and connect them together a whole lot easier than just go ahead and playing one shape, then move to the next shape. A lot of solos just move. Like they'll play here for a little while, then they'll go to the next one. Then they'll go back one. But they never connect. They just play one, they play the next one, they play the next one. They don't connect. You can connect them with those anchor shapes. So the anchor shapes, let's call this one the first shape, this one the second shape, and this one the third shape. Let's just go in order this time instead of saying we're going back one and forward one. We'll just say first, second, and third. And the anchor shapes are going to be on the first shape at the second and the fifth frets of the fourth and the third strings. That's your broad span. And then your broad span on your second shape is going to be in two different places, right? You're going to have it across the first and the second strings on the fifth and the eighth. But you can also play the one on the sixth string of the fifth and the eighth as well. And then you have the anchor shapes on the third shape on the fifth and the fourth strings at the 7 and the 10. And we can go ahead and use those to connect, right? Because I know that after each of those comes 3 small spans, and I know that before each of those comes 3 small spans. So they're kind of like a little island sitting in a 3 small span ocean. So just think small span, small span, small span, then two broad spans, like a little island, and then small span, small span, small span, then another island, right? And they kind of just sit in there, they sit in between. So we can go ahead and start out and do something like this. And I'm resolving back to that A. You just got to know kind of intuitively, that's where the practicing comes into play, and that's where the understanding how they connect together like puzzle pieces. You've got to know intuitively when I'm going to slide up either a whole step or when I'm going to slide up a whole step and a half step. So in this case, if I'm in this box right here on that A aeolian shape and I'm playing the small spans, the 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3 with my first and my ring finger there, I know that when I slide back on the third string, I got to slide back a whole step and a half step. That's my broad span. If I'm on the fourth string, I got to slide back the same amount because that's a whole step and a half step too. That's another broad span. But when I slide up from those, either one of those, I can only slide up a whole step because it's taking me into the small span. And you can go ahead and play with that. Like just take it in small little pieces. Like the broad spans to the small span above it. And then go backwards. And I'm doing some little hammer-ons and pull-offs and things like that. Hammer-on, pull-off, right? Slide back, hammer-on, pull-off, slide up. I'm just making a little circle. But that puts me in the box below. And now it takes me to this box. Now I know when I'm on a broad span and I go up, I can only go up a whole step. See there? I'm only going up a whole step from the 8th fret to the 10th fret. And then when I'm in a small span, I can only go back a whole step and a half step. So now I'm on the first string and the second string at the 5th fret, the 8th fret, and the 10th fret. Now I said something a little bit wrong, a little bit confusing. I said that you can only go back a whole step and a half step when you're coming from a small shape. And when you're coming from a broad shape, you go up a whole step, right? But there's 3 small steps. And the way they connect is you have step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 2 and step 3, if you slide back, you're sliding into a broad shape. That's my step 2 and my step 3 right there, my small steps. But remember, I've got that small step on the 3rd string at the 7th fret and the 9th fret. I can't go back a broad shape on that one. I can only go back a small step. So there's another rule, right? That's my first shape. Going back to my 3rd small step of that shape right there. Because we got 1, 2, 3, which leads back to a broad shape. But it leads up to a small step. This one right here is number 1. So it's going to lead back to a small step, which is my 3 small step. And that's going to lead back to a broad step, or my 2nd broad step. If I go back, I'm at the 3rd one right here. 3rd, 2nd, 1st. 1st is only going to go back a small step. Okay? Going up, first is going to slide into a broad step. Second is going to slide up into a broad step. And then third is going to slide up into a small step. First is going to slide back into a small step. Second is going to slide back into a broad step. Third is going to slide back into a broad step. It's a puzzle piece. It connects like a jagged puzzle piece, okay? So once you understand that, and you start applying that in your playing, like I know I can only go here. Then you get all kinds of cool stuff across 3 or 4 different shapes. So play with those rules. I'm not going to give you any more. I'll explore more of this in the Bottega. So get my 7-day free course, sign up to my email list. I'll send you information about the bare bones Bottega that I do, other courses that I make, bonuses. Anytime I put out a lesson on YouTube, I'll send it to you. It's at tinyurl.com/nh411. Another place you can visit my stuff is linktree.com/nh411, or just search nh411. You can find me all over the place. I'm all over socials and everything. So check me out and check out my stuff. Get my free 7-day course. It's down in the description. Unlock the fretboard. Just pick up the guitar and go. And in the description, share with me some epiphanies you might have found as you were playing around with these kinds of concepts. See you in the next one.